Welcome back to another episode of 22 at the Lips. I'm your podcast host, Alexis Stout. And if you are new to the podcast, if you've been here, welcome to the same spiel I give every single episode. But this is the podcast from EMS providers such as myself to other EMS providers, healthcare workers, nurses, doctors. If you're a doctor, thanks for being here. If you're a nurse, thanks for being here. If you also work in the field, if you also do whatever that you do, or you just so happen to stumble upon this podcast, thanks for being here. Glad to have you here. Um, Today's going to be a solo episode. I just have a bunch of things running through my brain, and this is not new to right now. This is all the time, but like things that I want other people's input. I want other people's advice and their comments and discussion and whatnot. That's the whole point of this podcast, is for discussion. So recently, because I work in a hospital-based system, so like a little background, you have your municipal services, which are county-based, taxpayer dollars, whatever you want to call it. They run the 911 calls. 9 times out of 10 don't have transfers. You have private EMS, which is all I've ever worked in until now, where you're privately owned by a company, but you still run your 911s, you still run your transfers, you still run anything and everything in between. Then you have your hospital-based system. And whether you want to group that into private or municipal, I don't know where it really falls in. I think it's its own separate category. But we're funded by the hospital that we are connected with. But at the same time, we still run our 911 calls. We still run all of the things. And it's funny because I thought when I started working for this company, I thought I would have so many more transfers. I thought I would be running maybe 1 or 2 e-calls, emergency calls, 911 calls, one of them a shift, and that is not the case. I don't know if we're pretty steady. I work on the night shift, so it's not quite as slammed during the day, and I say that as a caveat. Last shift was not a prime example of this. I think we had 7 or 8 calls, and that's not really a lot, but also compared to, like, the night before, we had 2 calls, it felt like a lot. It really hurts when you have that SLOW, we don't say that word, but when you have that shift and then the next shift is just slammed, it hurts. It hurts. I used to, at the company I previously worked at before this one, we were steady all the time. We ran calls. We did not get out of the ambulance at all. Oh God, we never saw our station. It was like having a collar around my neck with a leash tied to the ambulance the whole shift, and that is exhausting. However, it does make the shift go by faster. It's very much a pros, cons, which one outweighs which, I don't know. I would I would rather be a little steady and keeping it nice and easy. I can breathe between reports versus like I'm having to juggle trying to eat my ramen noodles and doing my report. And I know this is not new to anybody, but like, man, it just hurts sometimes. And it's also because I have it made in the shade where I'm working right now. And oh man, it does still hurt to get transfers. I have a love-hate relationship with them. They're easy because you already know where you're going. You already know what's going on with the patient. Everything should be pretty stable. However, we have our vent transfers. We have our patients going with 3 different IV pumps. And of course, the whole way the pump is going to be blaring the whole time. And I'm overstimulated, but it's okay. I don't know. And they're pretty easy reports. Once you get down the flow of them and you know what to put in there to make all the I's dotted and T's crossed, and I don't know, whatever the other phrase is. But like once that's done, it's not too bad. But anyways, um, no, working in a hospital-based system, it's not too bad. But one of the newest things that we've done, or that I've been a part of, it was very new for me. I felt like royalty. That's just me, but we recently had a trial with the LifePak 35. I was stoked. I grew up as a LifePak queen. I grew up in EMS with the LifePak. I knew everything about it. I knew how to manage all the small little things. I think the LifePak 15 is super user friendly. It's color coded with what you're going to do when all of the numbers make sense. When it prints out the 12 lead, it's big and bold and beautiful. I personally love LifePaks. Going to the company I'm working at now, we have Zols. The Zol monitor, I think the bane of my existence, the reason I would leave EMS in a heartbeat is solely because of the Zoll printer paper monitor thing. To replace the monitor paper in the Zoll, I don't know who designed it, but shame on them. Absolutely shame on them. There's no way somebody decided that we're going to unzip the side part, pull down this lever, take the paper out, and then have to feed it in a very methodical way through into the paper monitor thing, which is already, you can't see it. You have to pretty much put the monitor on its side, and then you have to feed it through, and then you have to get it all the way up through the little side pouch. I hate it. It is the bane of my existence of this job. The reason I would leave this job in a heartbeat is because of the Zoll paper monitor feeder thing. I hate it. It is the worst thing. Anyways, so with the LifePak, it's super easy. It's right there, done. I also like the colors of it on the monitor screen. I don't know. I just love the LifePak. But like we recently got to do a trial run of the LifePak 35, and we got to sit through a class. LifePak people came. They taught us how to work it. They taught us all the cool things about it. There are so many awesome things that could work and should work, and it has a lot of potential. Myself, I'm not a fan. I like that it's touchscreen. You can have icy cold fingers and be double gloved and it still works. They got the battery during the demonstration. They got the battery and beat the screen with it and it still worked. That scared me. I would never, but also I could see where it could happen. Um, my biggest things with the LifePak 35 is that it is a great monitor for in-hospital use. It does not work well in the EMS environment. The blood pressure cuff was so sensitive to every little bump. We had a patient that no matter how many times we switched arms, no matter how many times we switched position on the patient's arms, no matter what we did, and it wasn't the patient because we did it first time with the Zoll, got a blood pressure. We had both monitors in the ambulance, thankfully. First time we pressed the blood pressure cuff button on the Zoll monitor, worked like a charm. We got a blood pressure. It was beautiful. LifePak 35, not so much. I don't have 10 minutes with a critical patient to sit and hope I get a blood pressure and know that it's not right because the numbers are dumb. I'm not going to have a patient who has a heart rate of 61 with a blood pressure of 213 over 109. Maybe maybe it could happen. It is so slim. The Zoll gave us a blood pressure that was within normal range limits, and it made so much more sense with what was going on with the patient. I don't like the blood pressure monitor. There is a lot of artifact with 12 leads. And I personally, I don't get a 12 lead if I'm bumping down the roads just because I need the patient either where they're sitting at or in a stable environment. Sometimes we got to turn off the AC to get it with less artifact. I hated that. My patient's just sitting there. I went through the one I'm thinking of, I really needed to have a clear 12 lead. And I went through my typical spiel of, hey, I'm about to take a little picture of your heart. Try to stay still. Don't talk, don't move, breathe normally. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. The patient was perfectly still, and still I had all kinds of squiggly little artifacty lines. It wasn't a flutter. It wasn't a fib. It was strict artifact. We tried it for a second time, got a better one, still had artifact, not as much. If I'm worried about my patient having a STEMI, you think I'm really going to care about knowing that I have a great monitor, but I'm still going to get artifact? No, I care a lot. It's going to matter. I don't know. I like the idea of the touch screen, but at the same time, I kind of missed having the buttons right there. I don't know. I am not a huge fan. Um the times that we used it, it was fine, but at the same time, the times that we used it and it wasn't was a huge headache for me. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the LifePak 35. I can clear up any discrepancies of why you think it's the best. I can clear up why you think it's the worst. It has good, it has bad. I think for the EMS field, there's too much bad that outweighs the too much good that we have going on. Another thing I wanted to ramble on about. Recently, we have had calls that they're either borderline ridiculous or just dumb. And I'm not calling patients dumb. I'm calling the reasoning that they're calling is dumb. Literally had one that they didn't want to wait in the waiting room. I had another one that I, anyways, I had another one that they didn't want to take the patient themselves. And it wasn't something that I was like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe because they might have a head injury. It wasn't anything that like they needed to be monitored. They literally just didn't want to drive them. And that irritates me. That irritates the snot out of me. Um, at the same time that I fall into the category of thinking that like if you call 911, it should be an emergency. I think especially with our older patients, if you can't get there because you can't drive, okay, get in the back. That's fine, understandable. Nobody's home to take you and you really don't want to wait 4 hours. Maybe you shouldn't wait 4 hours to get checked out. That's understandable. But it's the people that use this as a taxi, and this is not new, but these people that use this as a taxi just it drives me insane. It gets under my skin and it makes me want to leave my job mid-shift. But we have had a slew of those. But in the slew of those have also been these absolutely catastrophic calls. We had a stint of, I think, 2 or 3 shifts with between our transfers, absolutely dumb calls. There was one shift, every call was a basic call, every single one of them. And then the next shift, it started playing out that way. And all of a sudden, we get dispatched to a house fire and they're pulling somebody out. I haven't had a traumatic arrest in a minute. I haven't had a burn patient in a minute. Still knew what to do, obviously. The call was as good as we could have gotten it. We rolled up as they had just pulled the guy out. We get the stretcher as they're starting CPR. We get them loaded up, run them into the ambulance. I'm getting an IO. So I'm drilling the patient as I look up and I'm about to tell somebody after I told him we needed to bag him. I look up, supervisor who was on shift. He was there. He's throwing down a tube. We get fluids going ASAP. We get about 2 epi's in, rhythm changed. And then all of a sudden we have a pulse and you can see it in the guy's stomach. We're doing great. We gave that guy every possible chance that he could have possibly have gotten. We lost a pulse on the way to the ER, but then we got it back. We dropped him off. They kept a pulse. They transferred him out an hour later. Every possible chance. Did he make it? No. Is it anything that we did? More than likely, 99.999% sure. No. Even after we did all that, covered him up. He was warm as we could possibly have gotten him. Um, I don't know. I feel like I wasn't torn up about that one. I don't know if it's because I knew we did everything possible, but I think also in the back of my mind, I knew that like there's no telling because he was smoking a cigarette while on his oxygen and the house caught on fire. I knew in the back of my mind, there's no telling what the inside of his lungs look like. Not only that, with the burn, with the house being on fire and he's trapped inside, there's a lot of CO2 that's just building up inside the body. There's a lot of room for infection. There's a lot of it just the body doesn't handle one being dead very well, but on top of that, doesn't handle burns very well. And he was burnt. We ended up, as we were cleaning up after, grabbing a slosh of skin from the side rail and like throwing it onto the floor of the ambulance bay. Foul. Absolutely foul. It's not funny. Um, Somebody threw up. It wasn't me, but somebody did throw up. Absolutely foul. But we had that, and then we haven't had too much after that. I say that I've probably forgotten. But last shift we had it came out as difficulty breather at the nursing home. We get there. This lady is laying down. And already from the get-go, excuse my French, I'm pissed. I hate when someone has a complaint that they can't breathe and they're at the nursing home and they have them laying down. It doesn't make any sense, especially like this patient with your patients with copious adipose tissue and they're a little bit on the larger side. Why are you laying them down? All that is extra weight on the lungs. Get them sitting up. It's not even like because I'm in this job and I understand it. I feel like that's basic common sense. Even when they feel like they can't breathe, the patients will try to be sitting up because they can't breathe. It just the body is already on its way to figuring out how to fix itself. But anyways, so we had this lady, um, she's laying down. Immediately we move her over. She has a CPAP. She 2 hours before we got there, she uses CPAP every night because she has COPD. She took it off because she felt like she didn't need it. Lo and behold, hour and a half later, she now feels like she can't breathe. So we get her moved over, immediately sit her up. She has the audacity to say, I don't want to sit up. And so at first I thought it was because like she has a back injury or hip injury, something like that. And so I was like, oh, what's wrong? Why? And she says, I feel like I can't breathe. Lay me back down. So my partner says, ma'am, we need to keep you sitting up so you can breathe better. She rolls her eyes at us. And, like, she didn't look good. She is pale. She is so diaphoretic, and I'm not talking, like, a little bit of bees sweating at the forehead. I'm talking, like, she is drenched, diaphoretic. She's got the mouth halfway open, air hungry. We took her off of the CPAP that she was on, put her on a non-rebreather that we had at 15. Nursing home said that the pulse ox was 50%. We put her on. She's at a solid, beautiful pleth wave of 30%. That's the first I've ever seen it that low. I've never seen a pulse ox that low. It was wild. I've also recently, for the first time ever, got to see a glucometer that reads low. I've always seen at least some number. I thought my lowest was 23. No, I've seen it at low, but that's not the point. Um, so we immediately rush her into the back of the ambulance. When we get her rushed in, me and my partner, we're scrounging on doing all the things. We get her put her on a CPAP, we get our vitals, we get a 12 lead, trying to get a line, can't get a line on this woman, give Solumedrol IM, and we head on out as quick as possible. Thankfully, we're 2 minutes out. We didn't even get out of the nursing home parking lot, barely. When I look down, I'm leaping through her paperwork as fast as I can, look down, and I'm like, oh no, call her name. I'm giving sternal rubs. I'm putting my whole body into the sternal rub, and this woman isn't even opening her eyes. We start bagging her. We get her to the ER, still without a line because we can't get anything. They ended up having to drill her, but we dropped her off. Maybe 10 minutes later, she loses the pulse. And it's sad. I feel bad. I don't know. I think because we did everything that we could have, um, I don't know. This one didn't tear me up. Tear me up. This one didn't do it for me. It was stressful, and doing the report, I was very meticulous in, like, explaining everything that happened and why we did what we did, but, like, Oh, also with the CPAP, we did a duo nap. I don't want somebody coming after me saying that, like, oh, you didn't give any albuterol for the COPD exacerbation. Yes, I did. We gave a duo nap with the CPAP. I heard wheezings. There was no fluid. It was very diminished and shallow. I think for me, what's not tearing me up about this one is kind of just coming to the realization that I've had recently, especially with our burn patient. It comes to a point where you will throw the kitchen sink at this patient. You will do everything that you possibly can under the sun. You will even be racking your brain. Your brain's not going off the deep end. You're focused, you're there. You follow every protocol. You call the doctor, you give orders, you give your report, you ask for orders. You've done everything, but it comes to a point where like you have done what you can. You were just very behind on the 8 ball. Not you, but the patient, and I think that's kind of what I'm getting at is that, like, even though patients have terrible outcomes sometimes, and that's just part of it. That's part of working in the emergency medical response system, part of working in the ER, part of working as in the healthcare setting in general. Patients will have terrible outcomes, and it's not your fault. And I think it's just taken me a long time to get to this point of realizing that, like, I've done what I can and I've done my job. I've followed my protocols, even dropping the patient off, asking the doctor, like, what else could we have done? What could have been done better? And being told, like, you did what you could. Um, I think I've just gotten to a point where, like, I've done it. It's done. There's nothing else I could have done. And it's not on me to save the patient. I think I'm finally past that God complex. And it's not that I don't care. I do care. But I'm past the God complex of like, I'm the reason why this patient's going to make it or not. Or if this patient doesn't make it, it's entirely my fault. I think I'm finally past that. Or maybe I'm just very desensitized. I don't know. Maybe I'm a terrible human being. Maybe I'm not. But recently had to really use my brain, had to really think. And it's also been really great because like I finally I finally feel like I'm at the point where like all of my hard work that I'm putting in is paying off. And I feel like I'm getting a grasp of this job. And I don't want to say this in my next shift absolutely be blown out the water and have some patient that like I can't figure out what to do or what's going on with them or where to bring my treatment to. Typically for me, that's pediatrics. I still sweat over the pediatrics. It's not quite what it used to be, but I hate them. The system, not the patients, but like just calls with pediatrics. We actually were, it's not funny. We, okay, buckle in. We got dispatched to a, it got dispatched as a cardiac arrest for a 2-year-old. My dog just did a heavy sigh, and I'm heavy sighing thinking about it. We were on our merry way. I'm trying to get a game plan in my head. I'm trying to get a game plan with my partner of like, hey, when we get there, we need to focus on this, this, and this. You do this parts. I'm going to do these parts. Blah, blah, blah. The typical just trying to gather ourselves before we're elbow deep into this. Um, we were on our way. We're about 5 minutes out. And all of a sudden, the AC doesn't work. The gas won't go. It smells like maple syrup inside of the ambulance. We broke down and we had to get another unit en route. The whole time, me and my partner are sitting there. I screamed. She screamed. We're both beside ourselves. Long story short, a hose popped off. I don't know how. I don't know what deity to thank for that. I don't know who is responsible, but thank you. Turns out the kid was totally fine. It was one of those like we experience all the time, those false alarm from parents of like kids do, they just stop breathing for a second, or they choke for a second, or they spit up and the parent freaks out about it. I don't have kids. I don't know how it works. I don't want kids. I will never have children. That's just me. I don't want to go through all of the things, but it was very much one of those situations. And the kid was totally fine, thankfully. But oh, you want to talk about racking your brain on the way to a call. Where was I going with that? I think I sidetracked my own self. I don't know. Recently, I've had an uptick of like, even our transfers. We had one that like I had to Google what the patient was even going for. I was looking at their lab values. I had to refresh myself on lab values. That's not my forte. I get it. And I kind of know what's good and what's not. I don't have them memorized. There's no part of my protocols that say that I have to have them memorized. Would it make me a better paramedic? Yeah, but I'm not, except for trauma, strokes, or STEMIs, I'm not even collecting blood in the back of the ambulance. So, like, it's a little bit of laziness on my part. Why? Anyways, that's really all I had. Just recently had to rack my brain, and it's so hard going from like your absolute alpha level calls, omega level calls. Somebody's calling for, oh God, recently this lady threw up the night before and then she called us the next day. So going from that to like this guy who has third-degree burns on the upper half of his body and he doesn't have a pulse. It's very hard to make the switch, but I think that is also a big part of our job. So that's all I got. If you have used the LifePak 35, if you're going through a trial at your agency, if you're thinking about it, you want to know more about it, let me know. Leave a comment. I think we're going to do the Zoll monitor trial, and I'm very anxious for it. If Zoll would just move their printer paper thing feeder where I got to put in the monitor paper, if they would just move that to a more convenient location and I don't have to break 3 fingers to get it in there, I will be a Zoll girl 100%. I will bow down to your company, whatever is required. I like the Zoll monitor. I think the printer feeder thing is the most dumbest thing on the entire planet, and I will stand by that. Anyways, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave a comment, leave a DM, do what you got to do. I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear any ideas for future topics. I just go off the cuff. Ha, uncuffed. I go off the cuff. I talk about what I think I need to talk about, mostly because nobody's giving me any ideas. But that's all I have. Thanks for being here. Thanks for coming to the next one in advance. And as I end every single episode, so with that.
The 22 at the Lips podcast is designed to support, not replace, the relationship that exists between a practitioner and his or her medical director. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host, guest, and not necessarily of Master Medics. The information provided during this podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for your approved protocols.